All right, folks, how we doing out there? This is KJ once again with Rigged Reality Radio, welcoming you back. Thanks again for joining us, you guys. We got a great show lined up for you tonight, and we're going to just kind of jump right into it here in the next few minutes. Be calling my guest here in a couple of minutes. I'll tell you a little bit about him. His name is Michael Herr, and he goes by Shield of the Son. That's S-O-N on YouTube. So you should check out Shield of the Son on YouTube, because if you're not familiar with him, folks, you're in for a big surprise. We're all in for something really special tonight. Michael is a wonderful researcher. He's opened up a lot of people's eyes. He takes a whole new approach to things, but at the same time, he's finding truth. And the truth is interesting, of course. The truth is bizarre. And Michael shows us that, but like I said, at the same time, he's being real with his information, and it's really going to blow you away. Covers a lot of different subjects, everything from the fallen angels to hidden history. So we're going to get into a lot of that. And he's also an author, and he's written a new book. So we're going to talk to him about that tonight as well. We're going to have Michael for 2 hours tonight. So first hour, it's mainly going to be Michael and I talking, and then the second hour, we'll take a little break in the middle. And in the second hour, I'm going to leave the lines open for you to call in. So please, if you could, refrain from calling in this first hour, and we'll just be kind of talking. And like I said, the second hour we'll be covering some more things, but at the same time I'll leave some lines open so you can call in, okay? Sure, a lot of you are going to have a lot of questions tonight. Michael has a great following of people himself on YouTube. Like I said, he's been around for a while, been doing it for a while, and he's opened up a lot of people's eyes. So get ready. This is one of those nights. Put on your thinking caps and get ready. Slide on your seatbelts. You know, we're gonna go. So, with all that said, build up out of the way. Let me see if I can't call Michael, and let's see if we can't get him on here. Okay.
Okay.
Still waiting. Hey.
Hello?
Michael?
Yes.
Hey, man, did I give you enough time?
Yes, you did. I'm ready.
Excellent. Well, it's good to have you on. You're on air right now with us. So just kind of explained a little bit to the folks out there who you are. You're a great researcher. You're also an author. We're going to talk about your book. And again, your amazing research, man. It took me a few weeks to get you. You're a hard one to get, but I really am glad we got you, Michael. I've got a lot of respect for you, a lot of respect for your work. You've helped me unlock a lot of mysteries, and then those lead to more mysteries. You know how that goes. But you're wonderful, and we're going to cover a lot of different territory tonight. So we're going to leave the second hour open for lines for people to call in with questions. This first hour, you and I will just talk. So without me blabbering on, let's just jump right into it. And if you don't mind, maybe give us a little background on you, and then if you'd like, you can tell us a little bit, about Shadows of the Music Industry, your new book.
Well, basically, I'm a theologian, so I studied at a Northwest Church of Christ Seminary. I studied there for about 4 years, where from there on, I got into paranormal study while I was studying there. And I think just what woke me up was just the Bible. Is the first thing that really just captured me was a lot of things that were spoken of, like in the book of Ezekiel and Revelation, about spiritual reality. So I wanted to learn about spiritual reality. And it came from like past experiences I had where just a lot of things were not explainable until I started to research it, and particularly with the Word, and then it started becoming more and more clear. But I wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to know the face of it. So I started to get into paranormal study, which inadvertently led me to the study in the entertainment industry, which was kind of interesting because I didn't think there was a correlation there until I researched more about it, how spiritual people were in the entertainment industry. And a lot of their experiences were quite revealing about the things that happened to them and things they experienced. And then that impulsed me to go, well, what are they really talking about? And so that's when I started researching secret societies. And when that happened, I started becoming more and more aware of it because that study led me to understanding that there were politicians involved with it, which that kind of blew my mind away because I didn't want to believe that. So it was kind of hard to believe that. And then when I started researching more about it, I just wanted to go from their own testimony because I like to hear two sides to see if that's true. And many of them had already professed to this. You know, people like Bill Clinton, people like Barack Obama have on record, you know, stating that they have interest in these things, or they, you know, people have testified they've been in meetings.
Yeah.
Meetings that aren't for the public. So I want to know, why is that? So that led me to understanding what the bankers were and what secret society networking was, what you would call Illuminati, but Illuminati is so much higher than people kind of understand. You know, it's more like you're describing a network of occults that go from the highest to the lowest, with all compartmentalized powers that they seem to exercise. One can do this, the other can do that. I started to see that it wasn't a conspiracy theory, that this was a reality. But the reality was trying to figure out, why are people involved in these things? What is it? I remember always referencing the Word of God and why things are the way they are. And the more I understood that, the more and more I started to understand the reasonings behind why people are involved in these things. So I went to research it because I wanted to know what's the threat to us, to people that aren't into these things and have been awakened through all types of ways. What's the threat to us? And when I went to research that, I realized it's a real threat to us. I realized that that's harming us each and every day. And it harms us more and more when we don't talk about it, when we just ignore it.
Yeah, and that's... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, preferably that's what a lot of local churches want people to do, which is what drew me away from there. I will always be a Christian. I always believe and maintain that the church is a lot deeper than just going to a building. I always felt that there's something more to a relationship with God than just not knowing certain things. I felt like God has left all knowledge available to understand everything. We may not understand it the way He does, because that's impossible, but to understand it to the degree that He's given. And in that degree, I feel like so many local churches have failed, and even the media and even education has failed us in understanding history and reality. They have distorted it.
Well, speaking of history, that's something I want to ask you about, and I know you can talk some on this subject because I first heard it from you, and it really blew me away. And that is, why is the name John Hanson so important, and why should everybody in not only America but probably the world know this man's name?
Because he was president before George Washington, and that may sound crazy to people, but he was. And if you look back into congressional records, and if you can go into the Congressional Library, if you can go to the Freedom of Information Act, if you can go to real textbooks dealing with that time frame, they will find that this man's name is registered in there among these elitists and forefathers as being a president. Now, we can't fairly say we don't know the extent of what presidential power was when he had it, but one thing is clear, that was his title. And so to give, Washington the credit as first president in the way that we have is not the correct understanding of history. We have to look at, was there people there before him? And there was. The second thing is John Hanson is believed to have been a black man, which really blows people's mind away because that's not something anybody could even fathom. Were you saying there's a black man among our forefathers? Yes, there is. He's on a $2 bill. So he's not on the front cover, which I think he should have been, but he's there. And if you pick one up, and it's funny how we don't circulate the $2 bill anymore, which happened right around the late 60s when we were having a lot of civil rights and protests and a lot of political things there, which it's an unproven story. I don't know how true that is. But, one belief is that we took him out of history to basically deny a certain people their truth,
Wow,
and to deny a bigger truth.
Yeah.
So who John Hanson is, is interesting because more information on him shows him to have been it's not proven, but there were records released that he had involvement with Masonic lodges, that he was some type of Mason. There are old pictures of him with Masonic degrees on him. I don't know his extent with all that. What was he, what that's about. There is the Prince Hall Masonry, which is one of the things I was able to research. Prince Hall Masonry is the African American lodge, where many prominent African Americans are there. John Hanson was considered to be one of them and a founding father of the Masonic lodge here in America. From what I understand, there used to be more interaction between whites and blacks in terms of that lodge, and then there was some type of separation that took place, which probably had a lot to do with slavery and the political machine back then that really separated what they called Christian whites from others, which is the thinking they had back then. That was like we're talking over 200 years ago now.
And what about the KKK? The KKK had Masonic connections as well, so it was all. I'm sure it was all part of the stage, but right?
Yeah. It's very clear. I mean, if you look at Albert Pike, that's your proof right there. Albert Pike was a proud Mason. He told anybody that, and he was one of the founding fathers of the Ku Klux Klan, where he gained his membership, where he was increasing the membership of the Ku Klux Klan through Masons. There were many like-minded Masons. This is to say all Masons because let's also be fair. You had Masons marching in the Civil Rights Movement in the 60s. So you did see that there was correlation between Masons that I guess had a conscience and Masons that didn't, where there seems to be something going on there. But there's other stories beyond that. But either way, Albert Pike was a Mason. 33rd degree is what he proclaimed, and that's already been proven. He wrote the Morals and Dogma, which was their Bible. It became like their blueprint. And along with, redefining the religion of the Masons, as he described it, as it's the religion of Lucifer, he was also one of the founding members of the Klan, and also believed to be one of the founding members, if not a fundraiser, for what became the Mafia.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That was basically it. My last part on it was that he had involvement with starting the mob.
And of course, he has the 3 World War prophecy. People try to say he was a prophet, where we know that he was just an insider, right? Yeah.
Well, from Albert Pike's testimony, he believed, and this is what he believed. He believed he was in touch with Satan. He had a bracelet that he used to wear, and he talked about this before, where he said that he would summon Satan. This is what now a lot of people think that's just nuts, in a normal, however people would see it. I personally think if you are contacting Satan, that's nuts, and if you're making it up, that's even nuts. But either way, he believed it. And so he believed that from this summoning, he received the prophecy of what would bring about a new world order, which would start with 3 world wars. Now, these world wars were so described so well that it's really impossible to think he wasn't talking to somebody, and I mean someone human. Somebody, and I do believe in the spiritual reality. I believe in possession. I believe that demons can give you knowledge. But it seems that these demons operate through a hierarchy of people as well, which is letting me know that in his occult, he did have powerful, prominent people in Europe and in many places that were in key positions within the political activities they were involved in, letting him know things. So the world wars that he talked about, the 2 of them have already passed, where when you read his interpretation of the first 2 wars actually played out exactly the way he said it did. And he actually wrote this down in I believe it was the 1860s, and it wasn't even released until about 1871. It's eerie enough.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, his 3rd World War prophecy. That part of that is essentially telling us they've co-opted the Christian movement, co-opted the atheists, they turn them against each other, and then when the atheists destroy the Christians, they kill the atheists.
That's right. It's all about using each other. The elitists are on another level of thinking. They're all about their family and their bloodlines and their religion, and the rest of us, no matter what culture you're from, no matter where we're just used by them. Rather if we know it or not, rather if we like it or not. The only way you get out of not being used by them is if having an awareness to them and speaking out on them. You'll still have to live in their system, but you don't have to do what they exactly want you to do. And so that seems to be the key point there, is just understanding how we're being brainwashed, how we get manipulated each and every day, and how we're being lied to, basically.
You had mentioned something a little bit ago. I wanted to jump back. It's a question I had for you, and it has to do with multiple gods, not just our Father, Creator God, but this idea of multiple gods and goddesses of actually being entities, actually have existed. Are they separate entities and real individual little mini gods, or are these all just smaller parts to the bigger beast? What are your thoughts on that?
I tend to look into what the Word had to say on that, because when I first started studying mythology and the studies of the gods and goddesses that were worshipped for thousands of years, it was so much confusion into the stories of their origin, but because they have different ways of explaining it. So we looked for the common denominator, where it's always these entities from the sky appearing out of nowhere, out of unseen worlds, proclaiming themselves to be all types of things, but always having the same type of mentality, desiring worship, desiring humankind to serve them. And it always involves war and bloodshed and all the things that we don't want, where they glorify it. It's a religion to them. The Bible describes that the gods and the goddesses of the world happen to be real living demons. And there seems to be a difference between fallen angels and demons. And but before I get into that, basically the demonic host desires to be worshipped as gods and goddesses. And we tend to forget that fallen angels used to be good angels who had artistic gifts. So angels are also called beings of inspiration, where they can act and put on a show. So it seems that from the test of everything, and even from encounters with them, that they like to pose that way. They like to appear that way. And they've been doing it for thousands of years. People have been actually seeing a real entity, but just believing that it's Hercules or Zeus or someone like that, but not really seeing what it actually is. While there have been people in the past, particularly the Israelites, who often spoke about the true nature of the gods and goddesses. So I believe that is a real reality.
That's great stuff. What are your thoughts on the ancient Greek creatures like the griffin and the Medusa, and this whole idea of this hybridization of bringing two species together and all that? What do you think of that? I
believe it's possible, because the Bible describes certain creatures that humankind knew, or certain genetic manipulation, and the evidence to that is, if you one of the Bible books you can look into is Chronicles, where Chronicles describes the wars of David and the kind of people that David encountered. We're talking about people who had lion-like faces with human bodies. This is what the Bible described as some of the Moabite champions and some of their deformities. And we read about other deformities like in the book of Judges. And we read about it also with Moses' campaigns against the king of Og and his giant sons and those type of things, about 6 fingers, 6 toes. These are real encounters. And so if anybody is an atheist, I'm sure they're going to pass off what I'm saying is crazy. But if anybody has a real, true faith in any degree, will understand that this is the reality that it presents. And it's not just a reality in the Word, but it's a reality in archaeology, and it's an archaeology and historical study. We talk about what people drew and witnessed and saw. We're seeing these creatures. Then we look at science today. Science today can take 2 animal DNAs and hybridize them and create another species. To understand it, this is why we have killer bees. And people tend to forget about that, why we had that whole killer bee epidemic, and what were those bees classified? Mutated bees. They were a combination of a normal bee and a combination of a very hostile bee, where it actually caused a certain unbalance in the bee to be very homicidal to human beings. So we can see that these are things that have happened already. And to think that they can't take that on another level to create something monstrous would not be logical at all. When we consider the fact the oceans are brimming with things that even fishermen keep coming back and stating that there's something out there,
That's true. And I want to ask you, As far as these, because you've heard of Montauk, the Montauk experiments, the Montauk monster, all
Yeah.
these connections with Dr. Moreau being real, not a real entity but a real idea. We know this stuff's happening, and I've done some videos in the past myself of these weird hybrid monsters washing up on beaches all over the world and stuff. But there is a popular theory out there that these are being created for Nephilim spirits to inhabit. Now, this isn't my theory. It's something I've looked into a lot. What do you think on that?
I heard that too, and this could be a possibility because the Nephilim, in terms of fallen angels, don't just stop at abducting humans. We have to look at the abduction cases to kind of support that. In abduction cases, we have humans being taken and we have animals being taken, and animals are also being experimented on. We're finding dead cows, dead deer, having very advanced surgery, having organs perfectly removed. They're doing something with them because you got like two different animals. We got the government doing it, but when we want to look at the spiritual reality, the government does things that is, from what I understand about it, when we look into Project Blue Book and what those people testified to that they were learning how to do things from what they called aliens, which we know they're not aliens. I'm sure everyone has their opinion on that, but either way, that's who they're learning from, these entities. So to think these entities can't do it by themselves wouldn't be too bright. It pretty much shows that if they have done it in the past, and they probably are still doing it now.
In all your research, because you always find such great angles on things, but at the same time, your information always feels so authentic. I know it's coming from a good, real place. In all your research, is there anything you could tell us about Jesus Christ, all right, that most people you think wouldn't know or that might kind of really blow people's minds a little bit? If you have anything like that. Yeah.
Let's see. I know he wasn't white. I don't know if he.
Oh, there we go. That's a good start. It's a good start.
There are records. I don't know if people may know this or not. There are records that the Romans spied on him. So there are records in Latin history and even in the Vatican of descriptions of Jesus, like if you were seeing somebody walking down the street. So that I found that very interesting because the Romans seem to have had quite of an interest in him even before the crucifixion. And the main spy was known as Gabenir. And Gabenir was considered to be the most prominent spy in the Middle East. He had basically a direct ear to Caesar. And it's believed that somebody higher up sent him to spy on Jesus. Because anytime because there was a lot of messiahs back then. We know there's one messiah, but back then there was a lot of people claiming it. So he had to go and investigate the cases to see if they were going to lead any insurrection. So one of the people he looked into was the actual Christ. And he described Christ as having woolly hair, which is a description of somebody, I would say in Jamaica. That's what you call woolly hair. And someone who was very dark-skinned. And the Nazarenes were considered to be dark-skinned people. The city where he came from, Nazareth, was considered to be a very dangerous city. It was actually more dangerous than the rest. So he came from something which you would call like a ghetto, just real hard living, not easy living. His father dies. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, man, I just quickly want to add this just while I'm thinking of it, because I can just sit here and listen to you forever, but I want to ask, this immediately reminds me of the whole Hebrew Israelite movement. Is there a connection there with Jesus?
The whole, the Hebrew movement today, you mean?
Well, there's like a Hebrew Israelite, like a black Hebrew Israelite movement. Have you heard of this?
Yes, yeah. Well, they believe that Jesus was a black man, which I believe that too. But I think there's two views on it. You got people that are in that movement or in that setting because they feel comfortable there, because the way they've been lied to in church. So they feel like that's where they want to be at. They want to be more closer to an image of a black Jesus, which is nothing wrong with that, But you got some people who look at that as a more militant thing, as black is beautiful, everything else is evil type of thing,
right.
Which is not what the Bible teaches at all. So I don't agree with that assumption at all.
Right.
I just feel like their movement is coming out of the fact that they're awakening the troops that are just so mind-blowing and makes them very proud of who they are, which is nothing wrong with that. I think that's probably the source of that movement, why it's become more about that type of thing.
Now, before I'd cut you off so inappropriately, but thank you for
Oh, it's
answering
okay.
that. You had said, and then his father had died. So if you want to go ahead and continue on your train of thought, if you still
Oh,
have
well,
that.
that was just basically about his living, why his father died. Well, we're talking about Joseph, his stepfather. Joseph died, as the same as many Hebrews would. The life expectancy of a Hebrew back then was from 30 to 40. You were considered a grown man by the time you were 14. So that's something that people don't quite want to wrap their minds around. Seeing hard work and hard labor, things like that. I mean, and Jesus, having to deal with things that we all deal with. I bring up his father because a lot of people deal with death. They deal with death all the time. A family member dies, somebody dies, and they kind of just yell at God. They go, God, why? Well, keep in mind, it happened to God himself. God could have raised them up, but he said no, because that's what this life is. And so anything we've ever experienced, people have got to know he experienced it first. And
Yeah.
he relates. He really does relate. That's a God worth worshiping as far as I'm concerned. When I consider what other people want to worship, you know, I just don't feel the truth in that. But I feel the truth in somebody who can be that powerful and humble at the same time.
I think it's great.
Yeah, it's extraordinary because human beings by nature can't do that. So we need someone to show us. And I believe that really shows that he was God.
Well, let me ask you this: what's significant then about King Melchizedek? I believe is how you
Melchizedek?
pronounce his name. Yeah. Now he had a
Well,
connection with Jesus, didn't he?
yeah, his name was a connection. Melchizedek, in terms of his rise, became king of Salem seemingly out of nowhere. They had no record of his birth, but yet, really no understanding of who he was because he seemed to just come out of nowhere. And but the thing with Melchizedek and Jesus is there is a relation there. First off, to understand, let's start with Jesus. When Jesus came out of nowhere, the Pharisees had a hard time figuring out where Jesus came from. They had no record of him, is how they put it. He just came out of nowhere, doing powerful things. No one could understand that. Even though there were records, the record lied in the Word. It actually lied in the Torah and the Bible. So we could see that they basically gave up on reading it, because if they really did, they would have discovered who he was. But because they had become totally apostate, meaning they had lost all sense of spiritual reality, they had no idea who he was. So when we talk about Melchizedek, Melchizedek is believed to be Shem, and that was the son of Noah. Shem in the record books lived for about another 500 years. We're talking after the flood on earth. So that's a very long time. So we're talking about somebody watching his descendants grow, and nobody probably losing sight of him. And how we know they lost sight of him, we have to look at what happened at the Tower of Babel and the confusion of languages, where we can see that this break caused also them to be removed from a lot of knowledge, especially about the truth and about those records, which would induce Shem to have come out of nowhere. And so the belief around the history of Melchizedek is more of how people would perceive Christ. Someone coming out of nowhere, someone doing powerful things, and someone representing the truth. But all these people in the Bible, people have to understand that they represented someone who was to come later that was greater. But they all represented a certain key life about Christ. One was mystery. When you think about Melchizedek, you think about mystery, the unknown, the spiritual, what is beyond, what we've lost sight of. And that's what Christ came to fulfill, are the mysteries that we don't know.
So why do we warn people against this organized religion? I've done my own research on it, and I see the things I see, and I've been in a bunch of different churches. You and I come from the same denomination. I thought that was really interesting, so we have a similar background. I was actually going to start off the radio show tonight by having everybody turn their hymnals to page 354, And that's the same cadence they use in every one of those churches too. But no, anyway. But so I thought that was cool, man. We both broke free and we found another way. But I see the Masonic stuff on pretty much every, certain denominations. I see it on all the buildings and stuff. So, can you talk about that? Why is it? And this is no knock on people who are going to churches and stuff, because they do serve their purpose. I mean, I'm glad I was raised in one.
Right.
They serve their purpose. Everyone has their own path to follow. We're just saying, be aware that a lot of these people really are wolves in sheep's clothing. A lot of them
That's
are
right.
forced to be by the government too, right, Michael?
Yeah. You just got to look at, you walk into a local church, you got to check the fruit on that tree. And what I mean is to understand, get the vibe of the spiritual sense of what's going on with the people. Are these people really blessed? Do they really believe? Are they really helpful? Or is this just a show? Is this just a suit and tie affair? First, check that. Second, check your minister. See if that minister is really hands-on with the people. See if what he's preaching really matches up with proper doctrine, and see if he's real. The problem that you got with local, this isn't all of them, so I'm just going to talk about a variety of problems that you got going on, okay? One problem is you got ministers taking a job who don't really believe in God. That's a problem. And that's becoming more of a problem than people realize. You got people going to college and seminary school and becoming ministers and pastors and teachers, doing it because they want a 9 to 5. The Bible's against this. So I want people to understand that. The Bible's totally against that. God basically leaves in the Bible the understanding that Jesus chose you. You didn't pick him. It's not something you can ever ascertain or reach or claim or own like many of these churches claim they do. They'll claim ownership on your soul by stating you need to come here. And this is not the proper doctrine. Make sure that minister knows proper doctrine, and he's there because he feels somewhere in his life he's been called, because that's how God chooses. He calls people in mysterious ways. Elders, too, you got to check what the elders are up to, because one of the experiences I had were elders using the church just for tax write-offs. They found a way to avoid paying taxes, and so for that reason, there was this issue, and I believe it's still a true issue. There were elders who were specifically told by the government, and we're talking government representatives from the educational field and other fields like that, who spoke to them and told them the type of religion they wanted, which was to stay away from certain issues. One of them happened to have been the issue of aliens, basically, because what they had on that was a lot of degree of Bible understanding about certain spiritual realities that they didn't want the church teaching on, where in return they gave them great tax write-offs and things like that, basically a means to save more of their money, keep more of their money, and keep more of the power on that particular community. When many churches went the other way and said, and we're talking a few, not many, wanted to preach the full truth, a lot of them were hit with, they owe us taxes or something bad happened to them, usually something legalistic. So there is that element in churches that it's not every one of them. Some churches don't preach on these things because A, they don't know about it, or B, they don't care to know about it, or C, they're totally sold out. And this is one of the realities of it. So it's not for everyone. There are churches out there that are standing up for the truth. You got people there. There are even good people in bad churches, which is interesting enough. They just there because they're trying to find comfort. But the church does have an obligation to tell the whole truth, not sugarcoat the truth. Remember, Jesus didn't sugarcoat anything. He told people the flat truth. If he felt they couldn't fully understand it, he at least related a parable so they can think on it. Either way, he never avoided it, So this is something churches do. They avoid. And I'd stay away from prosperity preaching immediately. When someone starts telling you about God and money, how, because you don't got $100,000 in your bank account means you don't have enough faith, I'd get totally away from them. Really. I mean, if they come near you, use pepper spray or whatever you got. Just get away from those people. TBN is bad. I mean, I don't know how many times I've had to say that to people, and they just can't believe it, even though these ministers have been caught red-handed, over and over again.
So many times, yeah.
So many times, proving it to you that they are charlatans. They get a good laugh about it every night. They find it funny that people still watch them. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the things about it. And the funny thing is, you got fake ministers acting the same way who are not even on TV.
Yeah, a lot of them are very bold, too. I've seen videos where they'll actually do these Masonic grips on stage, on TV, in front of the whole audience, and no one gets it. They just don't draw attention to it. And they do a lot of that stuff, talking about the brotherhood and all this. And a lot of these mainstream Christian artists use tons of that Illuminati symbolism. It's all over the place. So, I mean, it's, that beast system's there, and it's definitely, that's where religion is controlled. And that's one of the toughest things to deal with, because we get a lot of people who are atheists nowadays, and you almost can't blame some people who might be younger who get into that mindset after all the conditioning and GMOs and, everything in your food and everything else and all your mind control and TV. It's like at one point, I think a lot of them just kind of lose it. But
Hello?
Oh, man, I'm sorry about that, Michael. We just dropped for a second there.
Oh, okay.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, sorry, man. Anyway, I was kind of going there for a second. Let me mess with this here. I had a little audio spike.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just kind of messing with the level. Okay, all right, that's good. All right, man. Hey, actually, I'm going to jump subjects here, too. I wanted to ask you about this. This is just kind of something I wrote on the side, and I've never heard you talk about this, but it's kind of one of those interesting conspiracies on YouTube or whatever, but it's about Obama's scar. Have you ever seen the scar on the back of Obama's head?
I heard about it, yeah. Yeah, I think I saw a picture of it, yeah.
What are your thoughts with Obama? A lot of people, there's a lot of theories on him being a clone, being connected to Akhenaten, all this. Have you ever looked into any of this stuff?
I looked into the clone thing, and I just don't buy that, because I do know the government can't clone a human being. It's not an impossible thing for them to do. But in Obama's case, it seems more like Obama's been involved in a lot of cloak and dagger when it comes to the government. You have to start with his mother and that family there. It's believed that family was very much involved with CIA activity, whatever that activity was. It was something secretive, and it involved spying, and involved foreshadowing, and involved things like that. And the mom was also, involved with pornography,
right,
in a witchcraft occult. So these were areas where she was doing her spying, which is in some very dark, secretive places. And this is where Obama was raised.
I have to ask you this one too, Michael, is you may have seen this one by now. I did a video on it just kind of questioning things, but it's one of the newest, kind of bizarro stories out there in the last few months online. But the whole idea of Michelle being Michael, or Michelle being a man.
A man,
have you heard this one?
Yeah, a lot.
What do you think?
At first, when I first heard it, I was like, I could not wrap my mind around that. I was like, I don't know about that. And then the more and more I look into it, I still feel she's a woman. I really feel that she's a possessed woman. And one of the things I refer to is Beyonce. Beyonce is a real woman. That's not a man. But when you see her perform, and when you see that spirit that she calls Sasha take her over, she looks very masculine. I mean, really masculine. She doesn't even look pretty anymore. She looks like a
neck
dude
muscles, right?
Yeah, she looks like a dude with a wig. Up there singing. So when I see Michelle, sometimes I do notice she looks like that when she's at her angriest. Like those pictures that they revealed were actually, at that time, if you look into what was happening, she was angry. And she's been very angry with this guy. And in fact, there was even a blow-up where she had a public argument with the president, which is kind of telling you there's something going on there where she's pissed off. A lot of people feel that she got set up for a honey trap, which was she had an affair or something, and Obama just basically is owning her through that way, or someone is. I'm not too sure how true that is, but there could be something like that, because that's usually how you get control of these politicians. Is you catch them in bed, you take a picture,
right,
and you tell them, look, this is what you're going to do for me. Otherwise, this is what I'm going to do to you. Where really, when that happens to them, you start to see evidence of their being mad. They're not quite the same anymore. They're pretty angry. She seems very angry, and I think when she gets angry, that spirit comes out in her, and she looks pretty dude-like. And I just can't. But I'm not going to believe she's a man. I just think that there's just something in her causing it.
Wow. You know, it's interesting. You remind me of this. It makes me a little random, but for a while there was a pretty popular story. They ran it with the mainstream, corporate news there, but they're always making fun of Bonner crying after
Yeah.
meetings with Obama, right? And then around that same time, I've seen this actual news clip of John Kerry randomly having two black eyes, and they never said anything about it. And I just, I don't know what's going on there, but to me, maybe those are glimpses behind the curtain, and I start wondering just how brutal it is behind the scenes, with the whole everything with Obama. So for a while now, I've been telling people for a couple of years that I do think Obama is probably our last president. I hate to say it, but I just have that feeling. How do you feel about that?
I don't think he's the last, but I think we're very close to it. I don't think there's a whole lot of time for us, that's for sure. I think he could be. He's among the last. I think we're going to have probably a handful of men until things become a little more complicated. Will we have a president? Even if this whole world goes global, will we still have a president? Is a question. What is he going to be called, prime minister now? Or that's a scary thought. But
seriously,
I really feel that from where they're aiming things, he's not the last, but he certainly isn't a sign of we're going to have a whole lot of years ahead of us, like he likes to claim. He knows we don't. He knows there's something going on where, he's involved in it. So it's really sad. I hate talking about it. I mean,
I know, man. I know.
It's sad. It's sad.
Yeah, that's one of those subjects I don't do a whole lot is the politics, because I cover some of the other elements of all this, but because it is weird and it is a bummer when you think about it. It's like, wow, the next people in line it's either going to be Hillary, which would be a nightmare, or it's going to be another Bush. They're looking at another Bush, part of the Bush dynasty. So again, people, if you haven't, folks out there, if you're listening, you don't know that the bloodline runs through all these presidents. They're all related on some level. There was a little girl in England that did a report a couple of years ago, made national news, where she even connected all of America's presidents but one to the King of England. So this is bloodline stuff, folks. That's why, that's why this two-party system's it's a joke. The world's a stage.
Yeah, especially if Hillary's going to be president, because that's who they're pushing. A lot of people think Hillary will be next. And that's not going to be fun. A lot of people think, that'll be great. Hillary's not kind to men or women, not anyone.
She's a monster.
That's a cold fish right there. People don't know. She's not on anyone's side but Hillary's.
I remember that one, like, she was talking about when they got, I guess it was either Gaddafi or Osama. We know they didn't get Osama, but it was one of those, and she's like, we came, we saw, and we killed him. Cackle, cackle, cackle. It's just like, what an evil witch, I mean, I have no doubt that she's, what is it, the Belizean Club is apparently the female version of Bohemian Club. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, it's actually all Bohemian Club, but they always separate the women into their own group. So the women have a place where they go. It's like what they do with the Masonic lodges. You have the Eastern Star, that's for the women. Well, it's men and women, but that's when women can join. And they do that. In the occult, there's always separation between people. Always. Lucifer is not about bringing people together as one human race and let's all enjoy each other. If he really was all about that, people would have been doing that a long time ago, So that's not what he's about. He's about separating. So, when you talk about higher cults, women get separated. They get, as they want to put it, go to your place. You're over there. You're going to be on the left side of the woods. Leave us alone. We'll go and hump each other.
Yeah, the satanic agenda is really revealing itself, isn't it? This is something I cover as well, but I mean, it's really revealing itself, and I wanted to ask you too. I mean, I see it everywhere. I'm working on videos now where it's just more and more of these stories come out where it's blatant Satanism. It's not like a pyramid with an eye on someone's shirt anymore. This is like, we're next level now, and you know that. It's like it's all coming out. So, but I wonder just how connected it is sometimes. What do you think about, I know you've discussed this in the past a little, what are your thoughts on gang stalking? I've had a lot of people write me. They want me to do work on gang stalking, videos on gang stalking. And a buddy of mine now, Gorilla199, he's on the show a while back. Great guy, great researcher. But he suffered some really serious gang stalking from a coven of witches, essentially, out there in England. What are your thoughts on that?
It's real, and I'm a victim. So it's very real, and that's something a lot of people need to address. And it's usually instigated by covens, and so we're talking low-level covens. And so in Chicago, basically, they use the witchcraft covens there, who are so prominent in Chicago, they're in the phone book. They're not even hidden. I kid you not. You just open a phone book and you'll find them. Here's a phone number.
Wow.
So they were enlisted by the government to do that. The government basically had people on a list that they didn't trust for whatever reason, and it's usually reports that came to them from other coven members. To kind of understand it, it's like the Salem witch trials. A lot of people think the Salem witch trials was something that actually did happen, and it took about 50 to 100 years to really realize that it was real and that it actually did happen. So for a long time, people didn't believe it happened until the evidence came out and the court cases came out. And a lot of people think they were stalking and hanging witches. That was not the case. They were stalking and hanging people they didn't like. Meaning, if I don't like you because you're a Christian, I'm going to just find a way to say you're a witch. If I don't like you because, you wouldn't date my daughter or some crap like that, if I don't like you because you bailed on me or you wouldn't join my coven or you just don't want to have any, like in my case, I wouldn't join their coven, is what happened. And things like that, where they basically submit your name so you can be part of an experiment, and it's called a foreshadowing experiment, where the object is to foreshadow that person's life, interrupt that person's life without them seeing it. So you would turn people away from them to make things so impossible for them that they can't get anything done, which would then induce trauma into their minds to want to kill themselves. They also enlist electronic devices, and I know that sounds crazy, but it's not. It's not. To understand it, they do it with your cell phone all the time. Every time you pick up your cell phone and have a conversation, you have radio signals going straight to your brain. And a lot of that has already been proven to not only cause cancer, but it also heightens senses and it makes people a little more giddier. You ever notice teenagers kind of change when they pick up a cell phone? And sometimes they can't help it. They don't even know why they text. There's a name for it now. There's like text addiction. And people go, what's that about? And that has a lot to do with what goes through their brain. So to understand that there are real devices that could aggravate a person's mind to make them, very hostile to other people, which is what they want. So they do a lot of different foreshadowing and a lot of different techniques in order to drive that person crazy.
Well, Michael, that reminds me of the Navy Yard shooter. Didn't he say he was hearing voices? Or
That's correct. Yeah, he was being stalked before he went out and started shooting people. And that's something that people need to recognize, that, a lot of these guys who do that are not just guilty of the crime by themselves. They have people push them to do it. And those people who did it are just as guilty as the people pulling the trigger, because they were hoping for it. They wanted it to happen. They could have stopped if they were really concerned and really saw that this guy was dangerous. First off, if any gang stalking victim was really a dangerous person, wouldn't they have not gone through the proper court procedures to handle that? Have a real investigation, an open investigation, have the legal procedures done. The reason why they didn't do that, because those people were not bad people. So they needed to find an illegal means to get rid of them. And so they have a lot of ways of doing that. And they can't just outright kill you, because that would implicate them in a crime. They got to get you to kill yourself or kill others. The object is just to bring you down.
Now, what it is, so we have the idea of these witch cults, so to speak, that can do this. But even with some of the technology, what's the line between these people and then, say, maybe black ops, like some kind of a government group trying to do this to somebody? Is it all kind of mixed in the same? I mean, we know there's connections with CIA and Satanism and all that. So what do you think?
Black ops will just kill you. Black ops are different from gang stalkers. See, black ops set up a way to just annihilate you, eliminate you without notice. So your death comes up as you overdosed on a chicken bar or something, something silly like, something like that, where they come at you and eliminate you. If black ops come at you, that means you're a high-level threat. You're a real threat. You're somebody, and I don't mean like a threat as you're a bad guy. It's usually, you got knowledge that they want, or something that they really can't afford you to, say much. And so that's when black ops come at you. And when black ops come at you, it won't last very long. Sooner or later, they're just going to create an entrapment situation where you can just be killed. Gang stalkers are cowards. I mean, they're not. They can't even punch anybody, let alone, they wait till you leave so they can break your window and run away. What does that tell you about them? Children. You know, they got a childlike mindset. They are cruel, don't get me wrong. They got sick ways of getting into your head. But that's all they use. They got to use foreshadowing because they don't got the guts to come up to you and say, you know, hey, well, this is what we think of you and all that. They're just haters by a degree that they've been abused. And this is why they use coven members, because coven members have the right abuse and trauma to go along with hurting somebody else. They've been hurt, so they're going to hurt you. They've had people play games with them, so now they know how to play games with you. And they've had people do all kinds of horrible things to them without actually putting their hands on them, where they've actually learned how to do that and do it to someone else. So that's why they use coven members. So that becomes a difference with them. So I always encourage people that if you catch a gang stalker in the act, confront them. At least let them know. It probably won't stop the attack, but it just let them know. You know that this is serious in what you think, because most of the time they just keep doing it because there's been no confrontation. They think like they just got them and they can just keep doing it. Now there's been confrontation and they still do it, but usually the attacks don't last because they're funded by people and people have to keep spending money on them to do it. And so that's why you hear about attacks lasting for a year or so and then it just stops. And so you can't survive it. And it's just an ugly trial when it happens. It's just real ugly, and not a lot of people survive it.
Well, man, thanks for talking on that. And we're almost at the top of the hour, and I've got so many other things I want to talk with you about. So I was thinking maybe we can go ahead and take a break now and come back. I'll leave the lines open, and we can have some people call in if they have questions for you. So folks out there, once again, this is KJ with Rigged Reality Radio, your alternative to the alternative media. Excuse me. We're speaking with Michael, author and researcher, Shield of the Sun YouTube channel. So we'll be back in just a little bit. We're going to play a little music and run some ads, and we'll talk with you on the second half, okay? Thanks, guys. All right, folks, once again, welcome back. This is KJ with Rigged Reality Radio, your alternative to the alternative media. And we're speaking with Michael Herr tonight, who also goes by Shield of the Sun on YouTube. Please check him out. He is an author and a wonderful researcher and cover all kinds of subjects. Speaking of which, we're keeping this hour open for calls. If anybody would like to call in, we'll be taking calls now at 786-245-8127. There's our first call right there. You ready, Michael?
Yeah.
All right. Hello, are you there?
Yes, I have a question.
You do? Okay, great. First, let me check. Michael, are you still on the line with us? Hold on 1 second, okay?
Okay, should I be listening while I ask the question, or can I hear you guys?
Let me see. Michael, are you there?
Yeah, I can even hear.
Okay, I'm sorry, buddy. We just went went down for a couple seconds there. Go ahead, caller. You're on the line. You're with us. What's your name?
Okay, my name is Brian. I'm from South Florida, and I thank God that I got on here with you guys. I've been following both your channels for years.
Great.
Both of you helped me wake me up to the reality of this world that we live in, and to the truth of the Bible and God and Jesus Christ.
Amen.
And I actually have several questions. The first one, just because you guys brought up about Jesus possibly being black, I think I've heard a few times that, because he's Middle Eastern and Jewish, that he might have an olive-colored skin. Obviously, I don't think it matters what race he was, and I think that's probably why the Bible doesn't emphasize the color of his skin, you know. But
that's correct. Yeah.
Would you guys really rely on the Romans or the Roman Church or whatever that's spying on him to really believe that he, you know, he was black, you know, for sure? Like, would you really rely on that?
Well, the thing was, there was no Roman Church at the time of the spying. The Roman Church didn't happen until about 200 years after that incident.
Okay.
Actually close to 300. So the Romans were very pagan at the time of the spying. Basically, it doesn't matter what culture he's from, to tell you the truth. I mean, I couldn't care if he was green. You know, it's I think it's just the knowledge of understanding that he was a dark-skinned man is more important for people who, I guess, would have a kinship with that, because it's just about understanding the truth. But just understanding the truth of, yeah, he's a dark-skinned man, but it doesn't matter. You know, I mean, that doesn't make your culture better than my culture, because God said your culture is just as sinful as mine. You all got problems, and I'm the solver. So that's where that comes from. That's where I come from on that. So I don't get too much into discussion on that. Just to say that, yeah, he's dark-skinned, but what's the big deal? You know,
well,
I mean,
Michael, let me ask you this then. Then who is this Jesus? Who is this picture we have of the white Jesus? Where does that actually originate?
Is it Maitreya?
It's Constantine, actually.
And Maitreya is interesting too. We'll talk about that.
Maitreya,
but go ahead.
that is a pretty interesting subject with Maitreya. But the image is Constantine. What happened was Constantine accepted Christ in England, I believe, but it wasn't. The incident is strange. Constantine stated that he saw a vision in Britain, that Jesus appeared to him and spoke to him and taught him the divinity within man, which is a suspect religion, because that's what New Agers believe. New Agers don't believe in believing in a God, but achieving godhood, where Constantine seemed to be very big on that, using the Bible, and the Bible sounded so nice and all that to them, because of the fact that paganism was being eliminated by Christianity's teachings, the real teaching, where one of them decided to, okay, well, if we can't beat them, join them, was been the mindset of that. What gave birth to the Catholic Church and what gave birth to Romans declaring Christianity. Now, to get back to the image, Constantine felt that the best way that a Roman should be worshipped is no longer as the reincarnation of, say, the god Jupiter or something like that. He felt that now we should be in the re-embodiment of Christ. So he put his image up with, you know, Christ-like images, crucifixion and the nails through the hand. And that poster, I guess you can say it was a painting, became so popular that it was just repeated over and over again. And the Renaissance artists started to repeat it. There are images that have that similar figure before Constantine went to Christ. But that image was more suited with the pagan image. And so he started to take these pagan images and make them more Christianity, which is why all the gods suddenly became St. Peter and St. John and things like that. I'm talking about with the Roman Catholicism, the way they operate their creed.
Wow, that's great stuff. What do you think about that, man?
I thank God that I got on here. I love listening to both of you. I'm also a fan of the Prophecy Club, you know, at least the older videos. And I remember Paul Christopher was on the Prophecy Club, and he was saying that one of those images of Jesus is Maitreya, and then also Apollo, like the Greek god Apollo, based off that. But if I could actually ask another question.
Sure, man. Yeah.
For modern times, I mean, the Bible verse escapes me. I should have, looked up the verse first. But, you know, the tomb of Jonah getting blown up recently, and they're saying that, there won't be any signs unless it come from the prophet Jonah in the Bible. And, like, do you think this is like a false, like, Illuminati trying to fulfill biblical prophecy kind of thing, or should he really be taking this as a sign?
Go ahead, Michael.
The issue with Jonah is that God was speaking in a parable. You see, Jonah wanted, what it starts is a lot of people's mentality, when Jesus was speaking to people, had this mentality of God just destroying their enemies. You know, that's the sign they wanted. They wanted a violent sign. They wanted God to drop a meteor on a town and prove that you really are the Son of God, and one day you're going to come and save us all. And Jesus was trying to get them to understand that though there will come a time for that, but he felt the true sign lies within the Word and in his purpose, which was to save humankind. So what he referenced Jonah was the fact that Jonah was one of these guys where when he went to Nineveh, he basically wanted the sign of destruction. He wanted God to destroy the Assyrians because the Assyrians did a lot of bad things to Israel, but the Assyrians repented, and they didn't want that. It was a sign basically to the Gentiles, to people that were non-Israelite, letting them know that they were just as equally part of the church as anyone else is. So the sign reference to Jonah, as Jonah was really mad that God wanted to destroy all these people that your Pacific people didn't like, they were going to have the same attitude when God declares salvation for all Gentiles. It was basically a parable in retaliation to prejudice that was coming from people's minds at the time.
That's great
thank you for clearing that up for me.
No problem.
Yeah, me too.
Fake Christians. I gotta ask you guys about fake Christians, and I go to a secular college here in South Florida, and it's tough, man. I mean, girls are half naked, and I really do believe in the Lord and in truth, and I study truth every day. That's my passion in life. I totally feel that the devil has sent some kind of evil spirit to follow me, and to basically put spiritual attacks on me using girls. I'm a young guy.
Wow.
And it's awful. I'm talking about these girls are gorgeous, you know what I mean? And, I'm not the greatest looking guy in the world, but, they're coming on to me like I'm Brad Pitt or something, and it's just it's nuts.
Michael, Michael, are you thinking what I'm thinking, Michael?
And a lot of them claim to be Christians.
Hey, man. Brian, how old are you, by the way?
I am 21.
21?
Brian, dude, listen, this is crazy, and I love it. This just happened, and this is real. I was lucky enough to talk to Michael about a week ago, and I told him the exact same thing you just said. And I was even going to get into the whole Jezebel thing with him tonight.
Oh, Jezebel, oh my Lord.
Yeah,
oh, man, it's so bad.
This is why I just put up. I just did a video on I put up a video on narcissist psychology demons
I saw
because
the post.
There you go, man. I'd had an experience with one of those, and it all falls into the same categories. But so, man, that's a confirmation. I love it. Thank you for bringing that up, Brian. I'll just say quickly from my experience, because it was really it was pretty rough what got me into that. I battled this crazy narcissist person. Okay, finally got away. And it was a real spiritual battle. I even told Michael that for the first, I haven't been a part of organized religion for years, but the first time in my life, I actually called a prayer line. I'd never do that. I think this stuff's cheesy, but I called him. I'm like, I can't get this person out of my thoughts, and I don't want them there. I don't want to. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? Yeah, it was haunting me. So finally,
so manipulative.
Oh, yeah, and then finally, though, when you break free, and maybe this happened to you, then the attacks come. And just like you were saying, man, it's just for a while there, it's been a little bit now, but I mean, for a while there, it's like everywhere I went or whatever, it's like the attacks were coming like that. So
I'm like a hermit, man. I'm 21 years old, and I stay home all the time. Just I'll go to the store, and it'll happen to me. It doesn't matter where I am. I've had teachers at my school expose themselves to me in class. I mean, I'm telling you, it's the most unbelievable things. It's unbelievable, and it's a struggle for me every day, man. It's
sure.
It's
the toughest
that's
one.
That's a clear attack. Yeah, that's a clear attack. It just
and they're New Agers, they're yogis, they're New Agers.
Yeah, they're doing that because we got to kind of look at it like this. You got to find something where, in truth, to turn you off to what they're doing. If the problem is that heavy. The problem's that heavy probably because every young guy has this, okay? So don't get down about it, because everybody does. Sexual addiction is one of the hardest things to overcome for a young man, because your body is already primed for it. In a perfect world, you should have had a wife and things should have been going the way it should have. But because you're in an imperfect world, you're going to make mistakes, and Jesus said you already will. Jesus didn't say you'll stop sinning when you believe in him. It says you're going to make a whole lot of mistakes. You'll probably sin more because of how bad the temptation is. What he guarantees, though, is a process that you'll grow out of it. So you got to keep that in mind. So you are growing out of it because you're becoming more and more aware to the attack, and you don't want that in your life. So you'll always have weakness because you're going to have attraction to a female, of course. You're a male. you know. So, but what you want to do is just make sure you pick somebody that has your faith and common interests. If they don't have that, then clearly all they want to do is just get you in the sack, maybe give you an STD, maybe take something from you, maybe ruin your life, maybe destroy your life, maybe get you to do something stupid. Maybe they got a boyfriend, so they want to set you up for that. You know, all kinds of things, because
Michael,
women like that. I'm sorry, go
Michael,
ahead.
Can I add to that too, Michael? This is just
Sure.
grown up talk here, but also when you engage with those kind of people, and we've talked about this, Michael, but some may call them soul ties. Like some of that spirit rubs off on you literally and stays with you literally. You know, does that make any sense? Like you can actually absorb their darkness.
Those definitions, and I kind of take it to theology. Those definitions are described as what you call as a curse, a desire, or a like.
Oh.
So what we have is, by nature, our sins are inherited from our other family members. So let's say if there's been a lot of sexual sin in our past, the stuff we didn't even know about, some our dads were doing, or granddaddy back in 19th century or whatever's going on there, that carries over. So that becomes your present weakness. So that does develop a certain a kinship to that. You get your darkness, your arousal, the sin in you, your blood gets hot for it. So it increases more if it's a certain weakness that's been on your family. That's why Jesus said he came to shatter curses. And the way he shatters curses is teaching you about it first, letting you know what it is, so that the mind can adjust to, oh, this is what you really want. So you don't really want to have sex with me. You don't really like me. You just want to use me. You just want to destroy me. You got a thing in life where life has handed you a sour apple, so you want to give it back to me. You got to kind of look at the reality of it. Women are. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, man. Go ahead. Sorry.
So women generally, a real woman, women generally, even women that are out there doing that, know it's wrong. They know it they already know. A real woman just wants a man that's going to be good to her. A trifling woman has problems. And I say trifling not to be negative, but trifling because bad things happen to them in their lives. Something happened with their dad, with their mom. Something went wrong. So now they're seeking out attention by doing this. And often Satan uses these women as a prime force to get at Christians. I mean, Adam can tell you all about it. This is why we're in this predicament now.
Yeah.
So it's you're not going to be perfect. I don't see you getting off this phone, and you're going to have problems. But just stay focused. Just remember what it's all about, and I'm sure let God help you to understand that it's really not worth it. It's just really not worth it.
Man, that's good stuff, Michael. Thanks too. That's good. What do you think about that, Brian?
I couldn't agree more.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I got a little delay, so I didn't mean to step on you. Go ahead, man.
Oh no, nothing. I mean, it's just nuts, man. I think that the more truth that you know, the more the devil's going to come after you, and of course, he knows your strengths and weaknesses, and he's going to use women, of course, to get you down and to distract you from speaking the truth and from witnessing to people and from trying to help others and trying to grow in your faith and grow in knowledge. And I've had enchantresses, or an enchantress, and also a charmer, a girl who used, covenry jewelry that was, she said it was blessed, so we know that was cursed.
Yeah.
I tell you what, though, it seriously messed with my mind. You know what I mean? It really did. It really did make me supernaturally more attracted to her, wearing these cursed items, and I'm telling you, I think both of you have both said it, that the New Age religion is going to be witchcraft, and it is just everywhere.
Yeah. Well,
all day.
You fell under a fallen angel spell, some might say, because they're the ones that introduced makeup and I imagine jewelry and all this other stuff, right?
Book of Enoch, yeah.
So, and for me, Brian, I just always remember that the devil does not, remember that, he does not have authority over me, and I say that, to all of us. Yeah, just remember that. He doesn't, so, but I wanted to say, or throw this out at Michael, because this is such a hot subject, and it's actually, I heard him speak on it a while back. Would it be fair to say that, let's say, Cleopatra may be one of the ultimate Jezebels ever? What do you think about her?
Yeah. I could think of.
Speaking of Jezebels, but yeah.
I think of like Delilah in the Bible, speaking like far worse.
Oh.
But if I ever had, if there was ever a runner-up, it would be Cleopatra, I'd guess. Because the history with Cleopatra was all about seduction. She seduced and used men like it was just, like a child does playing with a toy. Couldn't care less if he damages it. Couldn't care less if it breaks. Just, serve my purpose and that's it. And that's what a Jezebel is. A Jezebel feeds men to Satan, feeds men to her goddess. This is the way she would call it. Cleopatra was a worshiper of Aphrodite. And we're talking a serious worshiper of Aphrodite, she just didn't have a painting up there. I mean, she had a whole temple dedicated. She had ritual sacrifices to these goddesses, even sacrificing men that she would be with. She would sleep with a man and surrender him over. So she had more than just her two noted affairs with Julius and Mark. And even with those relationships, look how it ended. Caesar was assassinated. Mark Antony jumped off a balcony. And these are powerful men. These are strong men. I mean, these are not guys you mess around with. And she toyed with them and just played with them. So you could tell where power lies. Power lies in the mind. And Jezebel is a master at understanding how to play with the mind. And they use their feminine wiles to do that, which is horrible because they're using the very gifts God gave them to bring a man over, and just now they're using it in a corrupting way, using it to destroy another man. So Cleopatra was, devout devil worshiper. I mean, even at the end, she wouldn't surrender. Even at the very end, she chose hell rather than face, humiliation. She just refused to listen or comply with any common sense. Her prejudice goes very deep. She hated anybody that was un-Egyptian, as she put it. She only played with the Romans because the Romans had the power, so she was consolidating power. This is all about power and greed and what I can get out of it. That is basically the character of a seductress. So we talk about a low-level seductress, your common Jezebel out there in the mall somewhere, or out there, at a concert somewhere, wherever it be. They're usually they are after something, and it's never anything good. And it's about how to toy with somebody. Keep in mind the passage for a lot of young women, which is sad. It's very sad they think this way, because usually the passage was discovering womanhood and their walk with God and how they can be great daughters of God. Has now turned to the passage of how well they can play with another guy's mind, which is sad. It's just very sad how far they've fallen.
It's enraging and it's despicable, and it's like it just takes every fiber of my being and prayer to not just be overcome with anger when these girls are doing these things. And and it's borderline. Is it forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do, or is it it's hard to I'm all about forgiveness, and I always do my best to forgive, and I believe that you can't go to heaven unless you forgive everyone for everything they've done against you. But they make it tough, man, when they're coming at you with spiritual attacks. I still try to pray for them, but then it's like, sometimes I question, should I still be praying for them? I mean, they're so wicked. I don't even know.
Yeah. You got to get your mind off. You got to get your mind off of it. So,
usually
when somebody bothers you, when a guy bothers you, let's say if it's a guy bothering you, not bothering you like that, but, he just says something stupid, and you got to get your head off it. You got to be like, you know what, you're just an idiot. I don't got time for that. You got to get your mind off it. I want to pray for them all the time. I mean, I would say a general prayer, a prayer that's more about you and less about them, more about you having more strength and more awareness and saying, God, I'm struggling with this. I feel like, ripping these girls' heads off. This is driving me crazy. Give me the strength to reserve my pride, my anger, all the things that they're trying to bring out of me. Because you got to come to him with honesty. You got to come with him and say, the weakness is mine, because you can make me stronger. And I've seen people become stronger. So help me to become that, And more and more you focus your mind on that, you're drawing closer to him. And when you draw closer to him, you believe me, you're going to forget about them, because other things will start to discover. Other things will start to draw your mind in, where your body and soul will want that more. And you'll have that struggle, but it becomes less and less the more and more you can find godly things to be distracted by,
Yeah, that's solid. And at the same time, too, Brian, a lot of men and women, but it seems like men here lately, with this whole kind of twist on relationships, the way things have gone, but are feeling the same way, and that's not by accident. I doing the videos I do and the research I do, I go to all kinds of websites and forums and look up stuff and try to see what's going on. And one thing I find, though, is in a lot of these bigger forums is you'll find all these things like, I guess links on the forums to ideas or whatever to discuss that always have to do with the difference between the sexes, and it's always really hardcore stuff. Like I caught my wife cheating, or my husband did this, stuff like that, and it gets a lot of hits on all these forums. Those get a lot of hits. You know what I mean? It's spicy, it's interesting, but at the same time, I think it's kind of a spiritual psyop. So that's happening at the same time.
Yeah. Can I go back to the fake Christian thing? I mean, like, okay, so I was born again when I was about 19 years old, and it's become, over the years, it's become so hard to relate to anyone, just because I've just dived into the truth so much. Of course, with the help from your guys' channels, especially, and probably my two favorite channels and sources of information that I have, besides, of course, the Bible. And I don't watch TV. I don't listen to secular or Christian music. I can't relate to anyone. Like, seriously, I lost more friends than I ever knew I had. It's a fellowship, and the fake Christians who don't know the Bible, they don't know the Word, they're following the false teachers in church. And I meet someone, they claim to be a Christian, and the first thing they ask me is, "Oh, what church do you go to?" And I'm like, "Well, why would I go to church? Like it's false, And I'm like, well, what Bible do you read? And, of course, they're reading some false Bible like the NIV or the New Living Translation and, these New Age Antichrist Bibles. And I have no fellowship, Like, it's a blessing just to talk with, two fellow believers and truthers for the moments that I've been talking to you guys. That, this are my favorite days of my entire life because I have no fellowship. I'm, like, totally alone except I have the Lord, of course. Besides him, I have no friends,
Yeah, but at what cost, really? Because these friends you see beyond now, that's something that happens to all of us once we, some would say, become awake, but also when you become saved, that's all part of the process as well. Once you accept Jesus, once you know God, all these things happen. So it's all a good thing. It may hurt. It does. We've all lost friends. I've lost friends. We've all had those changes, but ultimately it's for the greater good. It's for your best.
I agree.
This is where we just have to have faith,
What should I do about finding fellowship, though, and avoiding false Christians? And how do I even know if they're saved?
Love them, and don't worry about it. Like pray for discernment also for the people you should be around. And God works in weird ways that every individual understands. So I'm sure He'll show you. And that's what I would say, Michael. What do you say?
I say something similar to that. And also, you got to keep in mind that right now that the awakening has happened, it's still fresh on people's minds. You see, there's a lot of people right now that are false simply by proxy, meaning they're false because they really believe that what the guy's saying up there on the pew is the reality, so they're lost. Then you got people that are false formally, meaning they really are fake and through. So you got to kind of just be patient with that, because God kind of called us right now to kind of God says we're all going to carry a cross. You got to bear that in mind. This cross is usually designed in the way God wants it. If the cross right now is loneliness, then you got to kind of just I don't want to say you're going to bear it all your life. Don't ever think that. Just understand that you'll have periods in your life where it may seem lonely, but then you will find fellowship. There's no doubt about it. And like he was saying, you got to use discernment. That's correct. You got to use discernment when you talk to people. You never want to come presenting automatically about Christianity first. You want to see what they're going to say. You want to see where their head is at. You want to see where their mindset is at. You want to see if that's somebody you can talk to. And if it's not, then don't bring it up to them, because you'll just make an enemy or something of that sort. You'll just get a bad retort. So you want to look at it as, I want to know who this person is, and then talk to them. And to bear in mind, there are more sinners in terms of unrepentant sinners, I should say, more unbelievers than there are believers. And even the Bible tells us that ultimately when we look at the generations of humankind, more people went to hell than heaven, but collectively there's more people in heaven than hell. So we're living in times where we're under trial, in a more spiritual, broader sense.
Well, thanks, Michael. And on that note, Brian, we're going to go ahead and let you go just so I can leave the line open in case some other people might want to call, man. But it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
I totally understand. Thank you guys so much. And I don't know. I wish I could contact you guys again. I mean, I don't know if I should just message you on what to do.
Yeah, message us on YouTube. I'll have we'll be giving away some links and everything near the end of the show, and also when I re-upload this on the Scariest Movie Ever channel on YouTube, I'll have links to Michael's work. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, and I hope your book, gets
go ahead, Michael,
selling and everything else.
Well, thank you, man. I just want to let you know if you, like you were saying, you can leave me an email, ShieldoftheSon gmail.com, in case you want to ask me anything else, man.
Thank you so much.
No problem at all, man. God bless you, son. You take care now.
God bless you both in the name of Jesus. Thank you. I'll keep listening to the
Brian.
show. All right.
See you later. Okay, you still there with me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, good. Okay, Michael, thanks. All right, man, so on that note, I wanted to ask you, too, about hell. What are your thoughts on hell? What do you think this is?
Hell is very real. Let's see, do you want any specifics, like what's it like going to hell? Or where hell is?
Yeah, I would say that. Who do you think ultimately is going to be there? What gets somebody to hell, and then what do you believe that hell kind of looks like or is going to be for people?
I believe, first and foremost, people send themselves to hell. And the reason why I believe that is because of Jesus' work was all about preventing people from going to hell. That's what the whole dying on the cross was about. Why he let people punch him, kick him, whip him, and open his chest up, and all kinds of things. But this is why, so that you don't go to hell. So he took it all so that you don't go. So if someone goes to hell, they really deserved it. And I'll tell you why. It's not just rejecting God that gets you to hell, because God will always work on you and show you and reveal to you, I'm not what you think I am. It's about the fact that they don't want to stop being evil or sinful. They are what the Bible called a different sort. The Bible says we were all created by one God. But it also said by the choice of our free will, we become two different people. Some people will become children of God, and God knew them from the beginning, which is to say he knew the choices they would make they would follow him. So they had to be purged of certain things, because something about free will and pride, in terms of how he created us, there are things that needed to be presented to us. But he also describes the people he created, who are human and are brothers and sisters, but have completely abandoned him. They have a different mindset, and they're a little different from us. And this is probably why a lot of demonic possession is allowed to happen to them, why things like that happen to them. Because ultimately, their choices were going to be to murder their brothers and sisters or to work in amity with them.
Michael,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say thank you for talking on this, too. And obviously I want to go a little further, and that's why I want to ask you. I've covered this subject as well, and I see a lot of interesting connections to this idea of a serpent seed line, the idea of the seed of Cain. And, it's been co-opted in a lot of ways by David Icke with this fake reptilian thing that they're aliens. But you want to speak, because actually it's another thing I really wanted to talk to you about is one of your most popular videos on your channel is aliens or demons. And I know a lot of people have seen that. I saw that. It blew me away years ago. So you want to go ahead and talk on that subject a little bit? Go ahead.
Well, that's what David Icke is actually seeing. When we talk about spiritual entities, when we talk about these aliens and things like that, these are all spiritual beings who have a unique power to be able to go into anything or shape themselves into anything. But that specific part about going into something is important, because where God sent them into spheres, and these are called like dimensional spheres of hell. You got angels in a dark place allowed to tempt, and you got some that are just suffering in hell. And in the world where they're at, it's tormenting. And God calls it a world of torment. So wherever they're at, it's horrible. So when they come out, and they deserve it, by the way, and so when they come out into our realm, the first thing they try to do is possess. When they possess somebody, over time, the person develops traits where demons basically wrap their spiritual essence around your DNA strand. When they do that, they are changing codes in your DNA. And when that happens, that's when you see people morphing. So you're seeing people, their eyes turning into a serpent, or I've seen more extreme things than that. But that's basically what's happening, is that possession is like mind, body, and soul. It's all working together. So when you're saying to him, come in, he's going to possess all, mind, body, and soul. So when we look at the particular about body and soul, is that's connected for now in your DNA strand until your body is destroyed and the strand is broken off and your spirit is free. But until then, if a person allows possession, that will literally change their human physiology over time. Over time, they'll look like something else. And that's the threat that these so-called aliens pose.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I've covered some of there's the DNA symbolism you see all over the place, and a lot of it's right in front of our face. I've been seeing that for a long time, but yeah, so there's that idea. Now, what do you think of the idea of the mark of the beast, and then the idea of the RFID chip, but the idea that it's going to give us superpowers? There's actually been some interesting videos coming out about this. They're talking about it can connect you to the internet, your Facebook. I mean, you can see the appeal,
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
There's a promise. Well, that's the promise. The promise is, you got to look at it as the way they advertise the mark of the beast is like they advertise the army. Join the army, you get strong, get powerful, you get respect, all the things that the commercial shows you. But when you go, you get stronger, but it's nothing like the commercial. So what happens with the mark of the beast is we have to look at what the word says. We do see that there will be people living longer, but we also see that they're under a great deal of control. And we have to look at what that whole thing about taking circuitry into the human mind, that controls the mind. Because whoever's at the other end of the button is just going to program you to like this, like that, agree with this, don't agree with that. They're controlling your sensations and your emotions. This is where they want to take the technology. So right now they're developing the technology to basically get into the human system and get people on board with it until there comes a time where people are going to have to take that next step, which is to be completely chipped, or what they would know as cybernized, because it seems that the mark of the beast does relate to some type of cybernization that happens to the human beings in the future. They're being basically recreated, so they're a little different. When we think about what could come maybe 50 to 100 years from now, hopefully it's not 100 years.
Yeah,
but
I can barely imagine that at this point.
But down the road, humans will probably become, from where it looks, you got to look at how they're presenting it. People will, and how the Bible presents it. People will become sicker, and then they will find more excuses to force people that they have to take this to feel better. So they are already doing it now with the stuff they put in our food, the stuff they put in the air.
Right.
All those things are contributing to a degenerate state within us, where it will probably culminate to a point where they'll say, okay, you're going to have to start taking this, and this will probably be the catalyst that is going to lead us there. Because right now, you have people already getting chipped. You got people right now with the chip in them. So this is something where they're trying to start it off, and then probably down the road, if that healthcare system and everything else goes the way they want it to, they're going to expect us to do that.
Well, I'm sure you've heard of this, but the stuff in the water that they're always putting in, fluoride, that too much of that apparently can calcify the pineal. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, fluoride can do a lot of damage, and that's one thing I heard, and I believe that is true.
Yeah, I think so too.
The other cases of it causing cancer and everything, so fluoride is not good.
Right. So yeah, it's a multi-leveled attack, really, isn't it? Now, as far as the demons and UFOs, one of my favorite subjects. I've covered this quite a bit myself, and especially with the gray aliens, there's a lot of that kind of thing you can find all around you, and a lot of that in movies, and they really are revealing. Prometheus blew me away. That was another one, the whole connection with the fallen angels. But what do you think about this? UFOs up in the sky that people are seeing, is there just are they one thing, or are there different kinds of UFOs? What do you think?
There are different UFOs. You got UFOs that are spiritual, and that's the ones that are more of a threat. Then you got government ships, basically, things that they built, where they've got a lot of advanced technology. When we talk about the technology that the government actually has, it's more like 1,000 years ahead of its time, you know, in the way they calculate that. And so you got their stuff up there, you know, so sometimes that gets mistaken for a spiritual entity as well. Then you got other people playing around, which I really wish they'd stop doing that. So you got people who try to mess with you and make something up there. So it's all about investigating what you're seeing. So when you're doing UFO investigation, you're really in the trenches, you know. You really, you know, got to take a shadow position and see what's going on in the neighborhood, in the community, and see what's really going on. And then you can really determine what you're seeing. And many times people are either seeing a spiritual entity or they're seeing a government ship.
Like 9/11, I've always seen that. The whole reason with my name on YouTube, The Scariest Movie Ever, and all, I made a movie about 8 years ago called The Scariest Movie Ever Made, and it was my, quote, awakening to all this after a while of researching when I first got into it. But the opening sequence for me was the 9/11 attack, and because it was my research, things I found, Zendrius helped me out a lot back then, if you're not familiar with Zendrius, but the whole idea that it was a huge satanic ritual, and that kind of changed the way I look at everything now. So what do you think about that with public satanic rituals, even the idea with Sandy Hook? You know, that's a big one.
Well, they both were. That was very obvious. Sandy Hook was so obvious, which I think I have to thank the fact that more people woke up to 9/11. A lot of people have different views on it, but either way, that was a spiritual attack and that was ritualized. Now, when people look at that when it first happened, it was hard for them to believe. But so much evidence was coming out revealing that fact that the evidence outweighed the official story. The official story just turned into a pack of lies. So by the time Sandy Hook happened, I guess what the government force there, when we talk about the bad side of them, they really thought they were going to get over on that one. They thought Sandy Hook was it. Now they can take our guns away and all the other privacy laws, and they wanted to destroy from us. They thought they can do it, but they underestimated the fact that since more people were waking up to 9/11, they were able to see through better what happened to Sandy Hook. What amazes me, though, is there are people that still think Sandy Hook happened the way it happened. There's even so-called truth speakers who think that it happened the way it happened. Where all the evidence shows no. And then there's evidence coming out. You know, some of these people they said are dead are still alive. Some of these people who said they were teachers or parents turn out not to be the parents of these kids. Actually, it turned out a lot of these people were actors. So what's going on there? If you go to Sandy Hook, if you go to that community now, I mean, it's a big joke to them because they were all in on it. You know, it amazes them that people can figure that out. So the government used them to just say, oh, we have a huge, horrible tragedy here, and, give up your guns, throw it up in the air, be defenseless. Let us just come in your home and do what we want because it's all so sad these little kids died. That's sick. That's a sick person to want to, fake the death of children to come around and, really?
Well, then I have to ask you this because that goes to this. It's a fairly controversial question, I believe, with a lot of believers, and that's FEMA or fight back.
Yeah, that is controversial. I really feel like, when you're up against something that has to happen, I think about like the situation the Native Americans were put into. Let's look at their situation and kind of understand where that goes, okay, and what are the possibilities with that. The Native Americans were losing their nation, their empire. It was getting replaced with a new one, and that was called the United States of America. So they had no choice. I mean, it was like they took their laws away, everything away. Now you're going to have to be an American. Now you're going to have to be in our system. Like it or not, this is what's going to happen. When your children are born, they're going to have to be born in this, or you can stay on this reservation and suffer. You can deal with this, or you can come out in the city and just embrace what has happened and, things like that. Now, a lot of them chose to just say, you know what, I don't want to live on a reservation. I can't deal with this. It is what it is. And then they became part of the system, meaning, they got education and did all these other type of trades. Well, some just said, no, I'm staying on the reservation because this is my culture, my people, and this is still our land, and that's how we feel about it. They stayed and suffered it. Some reservations managed to get money through gambling and stuff, while some didn't. But I look at their case and I think about us. I think about how that's going to be very similar with us. When another government comes and takes the United States and takes our laws away, takes what we are away, to make us part of a global system, what it will be like for Americans who were going to resist that. It'll be very similar to what happened with Native Americans. You'll have Americans in fighting groups, militia groups, and many of them will put up a very hard fight. They'll and most likely die bravely, because I really think it's a machine you can't stop, because prophecy in the Word says this is going to happen, and many Christians will be killed. So we are going to be facing some hard choices. I will never tell anybody to kill somebody else, retaliate on someone else. Never say that to them. In fact, I wish that you don't have to do that. But if someone's threatening your life or the life of your wife, you have a right to defend yourself at the same time. It's all about making the right choice and the right decision, to be wise with your decision. If you got armaments, to be wise with that. Be wise with how you do things, because our lives will be like that. You had Native Americans living like nomads, even from other tribes, because they just didn't know what to do, and they're trying to survive it. So you're going to have people trying to tread water. And for Christians, a lot of Christians will lose their lives. I don't believe in taking a life, but if someone's trying to take the life of my wife and I'm standing right there, I'm going to do something, because I'm not going to be, submitting to fear either. So it's all about just being wise. Just be wise with it. And that's all I can honestly, rightly say about that.
Well, let's go from, and no, that's great. And it's all solid, man. And I want to go actually from one hot topic to another when it comes to faith and belief in God and trying to follow Jesus as an example. Your thoughts on marijuana. I know this is a big subject. I get messaged this a lot in private.
Yeah.
I'm fairly liberal on it myself.
Yeah.
I'll just put that out there, but that's not because of. I'll put it like this: I wouldn't want to see children using it, because it will stunt their growth. I think if you're an adult, and maybe you got a reason to use it because it does work, and you're in moderation or whatever. I'm okay with things like this. I'm okay with you having the choice. The rest of it's between you and the Creator.
Right. My position on it, I've been spoken about, as the fact that I don't think, like you just said there, I don't think kids should use it. I think that if someone offers it to you, don't touch it. I think you shouldn't even get started on it. But I do believe it is a herbal medicine. And what I believe is what the Bible teaches in terms of what pharmakia and witchcraft is, and what using medicines and herbal remedies are. There are two differences in them, but it is the same subject. So when we talk about drugs itself is not witchcraft. That's something people need to understand. Yes, drugs are used in rituals to open up portals and can cause possession, but what happens is that this is the abuse of drugs. To use drugs for that specific purpose, to drop the senses of the body to open up. Now, what happens is, if drugs is used properly in proportion to sickness, it is supposed to basically heal the body by dropping the weight of the body, so the body has time to relax. So there are people with certain ailments who have to smoke it, and so they're being denied that. That's basically denying someone their medicine. That's not going to help the situation. But then there are people using it to abuse it, and that's going on far too much. And also, when we think about marijuana being illegal, the resultant impact on this is saying about our nation: alcohol is okay, marijuana is not. So it's okay to drink alcohol, act like a nut, beat the heck out of someone in a bar, come home, drive your, do all kinds of crazy things with alcohol, and we're going to deny them a sedative that could just make them more mellow. We don't want a mellow society. We want an angry, pissed-off society. This is the hypocrisy of the drug laws in our country. If they're really concerned about us using drugs, everything would be illegal, not one thing and then another. So we can see they are doing this out of hypocrisy. When we look at marijuana itself, there are positive things you can use it for, and there are negative things you can use it for. When I look at what's legal, alcohol, it's all negative. Negative. There's nothing good about it, And so I think to myself,
Spirits.
yeah, So when I think to myself, why is that? What's the reason? Why is pot illegal, but I can go get a six-pack, it'll mess me up more than a joint? Well, why is that? And I'm starting to see that it's got nothing to do with protecting us, or it's got nothing to do with that.
Right.
I don't want to see a drug culture, don't get me wrong. I don't want us turning into hippies or nothing like
exactly.
that.
We were not looking for Brave New World, but that would be more of a pharmaceutical thing than anything.
Exactly, but I do agree that that's someone's personal choice. If someone is sick, if someone is feeling something, and that's making them feel better, and there's something there with that, it is not me to judge that. There's something going on there, and he's using medicine. Now, if I'm seeing somebody coked out in the room and he's pawning everything in sight, then that's a problem. So
well, yeah, and also whatever they're engaged in. I did a video a while back on a video game called Goat Simulator. Have you heard of that?
Ghost Simulator? A little bit. I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's a goofy, random, weird game called Goat Simulator, but at one point, as a goat, you actually perform a satanic sacrifice. You go grab your people, yank them up to the pentagram, throw them up there, then after a little, you kill so many people, it's a blood sacrifice, and then you become a Baphomet with superpowers, right? This is a real video game. I know, right? And it's sold as really stupid and goofy. So I did a video on that, but, as we're talking, I couldn't agree more either, Michael. So I'm with you on all points there. But, you're right. Like, if you're not in the right frame of mind, if you're some kid and you're smoking a couple of joints and you're playing a video game like that, you're not even aware of what you've opened yourself up to, like, by 10,000 points. It's like you know what I mean? You're wide open to that, and, man, they're just flooding in,
That's right. Oh, yeah, especially those type of games. You sit there and just become a killer by the time the game is over with.
It's serious, man.
Wild.
Makes you wonder.
A lot of people are getting into that type of stuff, too.
Well, there was a documentary from HBO. This is way back. I highly recommend it to anybody. It's called Operation Kill. And it was about our young generation, our soldiers, how they're programmed through a lot of these games and stuff, and just the way everything is. And then by the time they get out there, it shows them, has cameras with them. They're all rocking out on either like some hardcore heavy rock, or they're listening to hard rap or whatever. They're armed to the teeth. A lot of times they're on drugs like Adderall and things like this, all the various drugs that they have us all on now. And it's basically a video game. Like, you could even do a side-by-side comparison as these guys are driving through and shooting to some video games. It looks exactly like it. So that's right? Like, that's what's happening. Operation Kill didn't do that, but I should do a video and show that. But yeah, that's exactly what you're seeing. So this is what they're programming,
Whoa.
Right?
Oh man, yeah, definitely.
Bummer.
Yeah, because when you think about the video game industry, it's actually larger than the movie industry. So people do this every day. There ain't too many video games you can really learn something from. Like, most of these video games is kill, or let me just bash your face in, or figure out the ancient puzzle.
Exactly. Like it's like a bunch of like Illuminati stuff, so to speak. It's a lot of the stuff. It's revelation of the method or lesser magic, but it's them showing all these kind of secrets, which have all been revealed, time and time again now. But that's the season we're in, right? I mean, I definitely believe we're in the time where the truth is being revealed on so many levels, through so many hands, and so many people are awakening up. So many people are doing amazing work and finding just their own pieces to the puzzle that add to the bigger piece, and it's brilliant. Don't you see this too? Do you feel that, Michael? This kind of massive?
Yeah, because it is them knowing that sooner or later they're going to have to come out. That all of this is going to have to come out, and they're not going to bring it out all at once, but they're going to bring it out piece by piece. But first, they're going to get people ready for it. So they're prepping them. Because when they come out with it, they're not going to come out with truth. They're going to come out with it under their terms, and they're going to deceive people about it. Oh, we've been lying about this, but this is how it really is, and it'll be another lie. But it's the type of lies that they're waiting in the wings to get people ready for now. So when people are playing video games and really getting into that stuff, and I mean really getting into it, and that their imaginations are constantly on it, they're really being prepped for a deception. Because when they really get into that stuff, and when the government has really got them at a certain mood and a certain way of thinking, then they can just come out with something and say, but it's actually like this. And they'll believe it because they've been pre-programmed to believe it. And that's what that stuff is doing. So if you look at all these video games and what the topics of it are, they're fighting aliens, they're fighting mobsters, they're robbing people. There's a conspiracy in the kingdom of La La Land somewhere, and they got to come and save the queen. There are things in those games that have a pre-program to what they want to kind of teach them later. And it's so well hidden because it's hidden behind fantasy. So we got this really fantasy game. It's all just fantasy, but there are strong elements of truth that is subversively in the game. And it's subliminal. So it's not coming out saying, hey, look at this. You really pay. No, it's just coming out in a way that you don't see it. You won't even think about it, but it's there. And that's what I think when you explain that to people, they get really offended. But if they really, really think about it, at the end of the day, you are shooting a bunch of people. Am I correct?
Right. Yeah, exactly. For hours and hours.
Exactly,
and I'm guilty. Years ago, I played some of this stuff, man. I'd go online and shoot people and chainsaw and everything for just hours, It was a long time ago.
Yeah, a lot of people did. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so I want to bounce back to something we didn't really get to discuss too much, but it's a really interesting subject to me. Because I actually talked about it, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, but it's Maitreya. And there was a video I had mentioned, and one of my subscribers, one of the listeners, had sent me the link. So anybody out there want to look this up, it's really interesting. Somebody had snuck a camera phone in or something into one of these meetings with Benjamin Creme. Benjamin Creme, for the people who don't know, believes he's channeling the Messiah, who a lot of people believe is this person called Maitreya, who looks suspiciously like Jesus. Yeah. And there's stories he's shown up at UN meetings out of nowhere and disappeared and all this other stuff. But so they smuggle this camera thing in, and you see Benjamin Creme asking questions and then shutting his mouth, and then you hear a thunderous almost voice come into the room answering all these questions. It's freaking creepy, to say the least. It's still out there. Somebody had found it. But the point is, now, that doesn't have to be the example. Let's say that's not even out there, folks. If you're not familiar, look up Maitreya. And, Michael, do you want to tell them a little something about Maitreya?
Well, Maitreya was the entity that Benjamin Creme stated would be the Antichrist. But he didn't call him the Antichrist. He called him the world leader or the world teacher, the guy that would unite the world. Now, when Benjamin Creme first came out with this, he was basically considered to be a child of the banking family. And he got some position in the UN, the United Nations, and that had a lot to do with spiritual development. And a lot of that's been not very much explained or clarified as to what his position in the UN is, because a lot of people who heard the Maitreya doctrine and the way Benjamin Creme speaks about it, it just sounds like a New Age religion. Now, usually, if I'm in my basement and I said to you, the spirit of Roger Hatcheck or something like that is talking to me, and I create this whole other thing out of it, I don't think I'm going to get a job at the UN. I'll probably get a straitjacket if anything else.
Yeah.
But this guy got a job at the UN. Now think about that for a minute. They're taking him seriously. So there are things that he's saying that they are taking seriously. I mean, they are literally, and this is our world leaders now. This is people in the U.S. and Britain and France and Canada, you name it. They've been at meetings listening to this guy talking about this. It seems that Maitreya could be something more about an entity. And an entity, because it's kind of what Benjamin Creme is presenting him as. An entity that looks like Christ and supposed to be this Christ-like entity. But the way he describes it describes like he's just talking about a being. And when I think more about what he's talking about and why so many world leaders would take that seriously, it could be because they saw a similar being, that they're having experiences themselves. And these experiences are leading them to believe that what he's saying could be true. And Benjamin Creme, in regards to the occultists, when in their testimony of him, they say he's the John the Baptist of the Antichrist, meaning a messenger of the Antichrist. And Benjamin Creme stated that himself, that he's the messenger of Maitreya. And what did John the Baptist say? He said, I'm the messenger of the Messiah. So Satan counterfeits Christianity. You got to keep that in mind, that he creates the true religion into his own form. So it's counterfeit. It's here's the real dollar, but I'm going to give you this dollar. So Benjamin Creme has often been seen as that type of person. People have been exposing him since the 70s. Late 70s. More exposure to that came around in the 80s. And then in the 90s, and it became more clearer now, because people are taking that serious. And a lot of people will say, wow, this guy's just crazy. And, I would agree, because the guy is kind of nutty. I mean, the Bible tells you, if you got a spirit, even if a spirit appears to you, preaching something different, not to listen to it, because it's telling you crazy stuff. It wants you to be crazy. So Benjamin Cream is being taken seriously, and that's just telling me that these people are extremely involved, because usually if you're not involved in stuff like that, then how does this guy get a job? Are we serious? We're going to actually spend tax dollars listening to this guy?
Right.
Really?
Follow the money.
We follow the money. You got it. So it's telling me that, banking families sent them, got them that job, and it tells me if they can do that, and if they can impose this guy as being some type of real teacher, that tells us it's a real fallen world. We can actually pay attention to this guy. This guy can actually have a career advertising the Antichrist. But, of course, he'll never say it like that. He says, oh, he's the great teacher. He'll help us. Help us do what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what does he need our help for? If he's God, fix it. It's very clear. It's all a deception with him. But it's sad, but it's a real thing. Sure.
Well, Michael, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to say we got about 5 minutes, man. This time went by so incredibly fast. It was great talking to you, and so we still got like a good 5 minutes or so. So I just wanted you, if you'd like, tell the folks how to find you and discuss your book a little bit, if you'd like. Give us some teasers, maybe some spoilers. Go ahead.
Well, the book is called Shadows of the Music Industry. It's available at lulu.com. This book actually is about basically the impacting artists from the 1930s to 2014. So every artist that has been implicated in secret society, every artist that has had a strange death, every artist that has been often spoke about as a great inspiration. So I cover people from Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, to Carlos Santana, to The Doors, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Ozzy Osbourne, Metallica, and just going on down the road, Britney Spears and all these artists. But the book isn't specifically about them. It's more about what's going on in their careers and how they impacted people. And the book is actually more about the secret society involvement of their lives, in how Satan has used a lot of them, and how the world has been very much asleep to it. So it takes these artists and shows you the reality of it. I don't bash the artists in here. What I'm simply doing is telling you their story, the real story that the media doesn't tell. And that's what I'm telling, and showing you the true face of what's been said about them. And I do make it a point to be fair with them, but to also be very on point with the what people want to call the conspiracy around them. So this book actually covers all the facets of that. But the book is really about mind control and about brainwashing and about that particular aspect in their lives. So you're actually reading about their lives and then reading about how these things crept into their lives, and reading the true face of it. And so it tells the real history behind the music industry and the real core of satanic involvement, and how far does that involvement go with these artists. So it's very important. I think if anyone really cares about this country, that's something they really need to buy and read, because it really is about us. It's not even about them. It's more about us. And it's about exposing and revealing their lives, to understand their lives and understand how those lives impact us each and every day. And even if the person is an atheist, they'd still like that book, because it's still about things that they like, but giving them an understanding that there is another argument to the side of the story. There is the real story, and that's what I try to put in there. And that's why it's very, very important for people to have. They can find me at Shield of the Sun. I'll be making more videos this week. And they can find me at Facebook under Michael Herr, under that name. And
how do you spell the last name, Michael?
Michael Herr, H-U-R.
Okay. And so now, I don't know if you mentioned or not, how do we find the book?
Say again?
How could people purchase the book?
They can purchase the book at lulu.com.
Okay, lulu.com. And then just look up for the title, Shadows of the Music Industry.
That's correct. Just look Shadows of the Music Industry by Michael Herr, and that's how they'll find it.
Cool. Michael, hey, wow, it has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Anything last you'd like to leave the audience with? Any final messages for it?
Stay in prayer. Stay in the Lord. God bless you all, and live by love. Don't let fear take you. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, Michael. And hey, well, we've said a lot, man. I look forward to listening to this again. I'm telling you, just to kind of listen to all the stuff we went over, and thanks again. I hope to do this again with you soon. Let's stay in touch. Best of luck with everything for you, and I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Sounds great, man. God bless you, brother. You take care.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, folks, there we go. That was 2 hours with our friend Michael LaHer, Shield of the Sun YouTube channel. Please check him out. It is worth your time, I'm telling you. We just seemed like we covered a lot of territory, but I'm telling you, we really just skimmed the surface of some of the things that Michael can get into. So, folks, once again, thanks for joining us here at Read Reality Radio with me, your host, KJ Ozborne. You can find us at psnradio.com. Look under Rigged Reality Radio. You'll find us there. You can hear us every Thursday night live from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time. And, folks, I got a really special guest hopefully lined up for next week. I'm waiting on the final word, but if I do, it's a friend from England, I'll say. Many of you may not have heard of this person, but they specialize in research on mind control, and especially mind control of the media. I think you're really going to appreciate this. If not this time around, we'll get him next time, and I've got somebody just as cool backed up, but I'll keep that a secret for now as well. Thanks, guys. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.